Don't know if I'm live. Am I live? I think I am. Welcome to what is this called? This is called the cockpit. Yeah, my name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot tonight. I am joined alongside my co-pilot. I've got Joe Blewett from Jets X Factor. Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, man. It feels like a little bit since we've done one of these. Every time that it's like my Monday, it's either I'm busy or you're in Florida or you're on a vacation or you're at a bachelor party or you're doing something. So
Yep.
I'm happy to jump on after one of the victories of the season, the few and far between victories. So at least that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It feels like I haven't had you on. God, it's got to be close to 2 months, I would think.
Yeah, it's been a little bit.
Or a month and a half, maybe.
We got to get back on our train of like once a month. I feel like that's what we're at for a good like year. So at least once a month during the draft, we'll talk about drafting the Jabril Coxes of the world again and all that fun stuff we did. So we gotta ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Boys and girls, thank you so much for jumping in and hanging out with us tonight. Hit that like button on your way in. We're going to be talking a little bit about the Jets and Texans. Jets get their, 3-8? Third victory of the season. We surpassed last year's mark by one game, 50% better. Jets wind up winning 21-14 in what was a very kind of bittersweet game for Jet fans. Zach Wilson not exactly lighting the world on fire. He winds up finishing 14 of 24, 145 yards, one rushing touchdown, and an interception. And it kind of had Jet fans feeling away. I was like looking at the different forum posts, the YouTube posts, the friggin' Facebook posts, and people are like losing their mind on this whole thing. And I want to hear your thought process on this. And it's the question that I asked in the thumbnail of the video, and that is, did the Jets make a mistake drafting Zach Wilson? We'll jump right into it there. What do you think so far of what we've gotten out of our rookie just a few games into his rookie career?
You're not even going to butter me up first, Tom. We're getting right into
it. Nope. We're
okay.
Going right into it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a mistake because like the process was good. I liked him at BYU. I liked it, and again, everybody will have a revisionist history, and they'll go back to the other quarterbacks. And I know now everybody's a Mac Jones fan, even though everybody during draft time hated Mac Jones. Justin Fields isn't playing well. I think somebody put out the stat the other day, or I think it was like NJ, Mike, or Matt, one of those guys on Twitter, who said that Trevor Lawrence has thrown one touchdown in the month of November, and nobody's talking about it. So it's not like anybody else is really playing well. So that kind of lessens the hurt of Zach Wilson's game right now. In general, but no, I'm still fine with the decision to draft him. So I don't think they made a mistake in drafting him. Now, can you say that you're, not as encouraged as you'd hope to be through, 11 weeks of football or so? My math is terrible, 11, 12, whatever it is. Yes, that's true at the same time. And he has been struggling. We expected that after he came back from, 3 weeks-ish of sitting, 3.5, whatever it was, of sitting, that he would make some improvements, watching Mike White and watching Joe Flacco and watching Josh Johnson. And unfortunately, we saw some of the same problems. Now, he didn't, the one pick he threw, it was kind of iffy. Like, should he have just ran it? Probably. But, Ty Johnson's eyes were to him. I get it. It's not one of those picks where he's like throwing into double coverage, where he doesn't see like an underneath defender like peeling off. So it's not as bad as that. It's kind of just like for lack of a better term, like a silly interception. But we still saw the misses, and we still saw him kind of get panicky versus the blitz and holding on to some balls and not throwing the ball away, taking that one sack, -3 yards, missing Elijah Moore, missing Braxton Berrios over the middle, which was almost a pick, missing was it Tevin Coleman like a swing route, bowling it over his head. He missed the slant, almost threw another pick. Then I think he threw a slant too hard too, which listen, is it easy to say? Okay,
Elijah Moore, it was like not a far pass, and it was just like rifle.
Exactly. There's scenarios where you're gonna have to rip the ball if it's 3 yards if you're between two guys. Like I get that can happen, but when your guy is open, you got to take some heat off that ball because people act like it's easy to catch a football at 50, 55, 60 miles per hour, but it's not. And especially you have to adjust that quickly. So he has to calm down because he's super streaky, and he was one of those guys we touted come out of BYU to be like that quarterback that forgot the last play. But he is so hot and cold throughout a game. He does not forget the last play. He just doesn't. He presses if there's a mistake. He presses if they're down, missing easy completions. So I'm not encouraged right now, but I'm not jumping off the bandwagon. And people will bring up obviously the Josh Allens of the world and all the stats that they want, which is fine. And there's definitely a possibility that he bounces out of this. But let's not act like everybody in here, including you and I, that we would sign up for what he's done through, his this part of his rookie season. None of us are encouraged unless we're lying to ourselves. And we've seen, quarterback struggle like this in the past. I'm not saying he's going to be this guy, but the Genos, the Sanchez's, even Darnold, his rookie year, like he's had many better games than Zach Wilson's had at this point. Like the Colts game he had, the Broncos game he had, the Lions game he had after that pick, obviously the Packers and Texans games were all amazed, so like he's had some of those games, and Zach Wilson has had maybe one, against the Titans. And even in that game, I was a little bit critical because there's some decisions I didn't necessarily love. So some people rated that as like an A+ game, A game. That was like more of like a B+ game because there's still some balls he was forcing. And then you look at the end of the Titans game too, like he could have iced it to Corey Davis on the out and missed him. Could have iced the game at the end to Ryan Griffin, threw it to his feet. So like he needs to improve. I'm not encouraged, but I'm not saying there's no chance that he doesn't bounce back from this. That would be foolish at this point.
Yeah, I think when I look at the whole aspect of drafting Zach, and I kind of like think back to where our mindset was back in like February, March, all that time, and we're going through everything, and there was a lot of discussion between Zach Wilson and Justin Fields. Those felt like the two choices the Jets were really going to have. I didn't really hear many Trey Lance calls, maybe Mac Jones once or twice, but that was like few and far between. The majority of people were really down on Mac Jones. He was playing with a loaded roster, that whole thing. So I guess what I'm thinking about it is if people are upset with drafting Zach Wilson and you're talking about, okay, well, what other options did the Jets have? The one option, roll with Sam Darnold. You trade down from number 2 and you just get a haul of picks from the 49ers. Like that's one option, but you're seeing how that's playing out for the Panthers right now. And you would see that Sam is not the guy.
An XFL quarterback is starting for them right now. That's pretty much what I would say.
And what's crazy is like you have him or you have like, what do you do? If you have Sam, now you have to get a quarterback next year. Now, maybe you have the argument like, okay, the Jets have more firepower because they traded back and they've brought in more players around what would have been Sam, but now you're moving on from Sam, say next year. And then maybe you just go balls to the wall and go after like Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers, which I don't think is a smart idea at all for the Jets to do. Like, don't get it twisted.
No.
But I'm just saying, if you were to run it back, had run it back with Sam, like maybe that's the only weird sort of situation that maybe might have popped up. But I think moving on from Sam was the right move. Then when you look at number 2, your thought process, no one was taking Mac Jones at 2, right? Like you're either taking Fields or Wilson at 2. And if you're saying, hey, we're going to trade down, we would have taken the 49ers trade and drafted Mac Jones in front of the Patriots. Like, that's stupid too. Like, if you like Mac Jones enough to take him at 12, you're taking him at 2. And no one was talking about that. So I'm still on board the Zach Wilson bandwagon. But like you, I am not as encouraged as I would like to be 12 weeks through the season or whatever we're at. I did come across a very interesting tweet today, a weird stat that definitely doesn't tell the whole story at all. But I just want to throw it out there to you, see what you think about it. Mac Jones and Zach Wilson have both faced the Texans, the Falcons, the Titans, and the Panthers. In those games, Zach Wilson and Mac Jones both have 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Zach Wilson edges out Mac Jones by just 5 yards, 892 yards to 887 yards, yet everyone's all hyped up on Mac Jones, and there's like not a lot being said positively about Zach Wilson. And I think for me, the glaring difference, one, Mac has played in all his games. So you've been able to see him more than just those teams. And 2, when Zach Wilson went against Mac Jones, that's like the big, like, okay, there's 4 interceptions that first game. Then he gets knocked out of the second game. So that the 2 of his, 6 games that he's played in against the Patriots, not looking so good. But the other 4, he at least looks comparable to Mac Jones. So in your opinion, what does that say with those 2 sets of stats? Are Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, they're not similar, but are they sort of not as far as maybe a lot of people kind of think?
Well, they're different quarterbacks, obviously, too. Like it's, the whole stat thing. I haven't watched Mac Jones closely enough to like know exactly what his flaws are, but you're also looking at a quarterback who's drafted out of a school which is facing much heavier competition than BYU was, obviously. You're going to a organization which has been the most winning organization since we've watched football, with an OC who is one of the best in football behind a DC who was shutting teams out, like versus the Falcons. Like every game's different. Zach Wilson in those games has to put up some points where Mac Jones is sporting, a defense, and behind a defense where they're shutting the Falcons out. It's a little bit easier to make easier decisions when your defense is literally shutting people out. So you have a quarterback in Mac Jones who is farther developed in his process. And again, you have guys who come out and that's why you hear like, one guy's a finished product, one's a little bit farther away, one's super raw. And Zach Wilson was farther away from being that finished product where Mac Jones was pretty much, I'm not going to say like topped out, because that's not true, but much more near topped out than Zach Wilson was. So you have a quarterback who is already farther in his development, going to a much better team with a much better roster, with a much better coach, with a much better defense than Zach Wilson. So regardless of what the stats say, yeah, Mac Jones is farther along than he is, but his ceiling is also nowhere near where Zach Wilson's is. Like Zach Wilson has the ceiling, and again, ceiling is a completely different conversation than what I think will it be what I think it will be of his average, but he has a ceiling of a top 10 quarterback. The arm talent. We sasaw it in the Titans game, the way he can evade defenders. We saw it even this week with the read option. Well, actually, it wasn't a read option. Salah came out and said that it wasn't even a read option. Yeah, he just pulled it himself. It wasn't a design of the play. So you have a quarterback who has an immense upside where Mac Jones would look much different with the Jets than he does with the Pats. So regardless of the stats, yeah, there's a difference, but it still wasn't a mistake to draft him over Mac Jones. And again, there are other people who will go and say that they believe that, and maybe there is 1 out of 100 people who will say that. But then there's also other people who say that, who are deleting all their tweets and will claim that they said that, because people just like to be right, regardless if they were actually right. So yeah, I get it, because he was drafted in the same draft. You can compare those guys in the same division, all that, but it's a completely different scenario. So it's not really worth comparing these guys right now.
Yeah, when I watch Mac Jones, and it's gotten me so frustrated, because it feels very much like the early Tom Brady, where he's not doing a whole lot. He's not asked to do a whole lot. The defense is really strong. The offensive line is really strong. He's got the running back support. And he's leaning on the knowledge of the coaching staff. They're calling a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage. They're not doing some of the wheel routes that they've done in the past, and they're kind of simplifying it. I think that they're writing the book on how you should, help a rookie quarterback. For me, when I look at Mac Jones, I think of like, he doesn't seem that far off from like what we had in Chad Pennington. Like that's sort of where I'm feeling Mac Jones is, where I feel like Zach Wilson could be like just another level, like completely another level, but but his floor is just so much lower. I think the high floor of Mac Jones and the low floor of Wilson is probably what's maybe the most concerning part for Jet fans, maybe, like, because I don't want to be going back to the for 2 years from now, drafting another quarterback in the top 5. I'm done with this. I want to win.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's like we've endured so many just the last decade, we've endured so many like bad GMs, bad coaches, bad quarterbacks, that like when they draft Zach Wilson, he is hyped up and all this stuff. You're kind of sitting there like, you know what? Like regardless of what the film says, what this says, what that says, like at some point it has to be our time. Like the Cardinals now with Kyler Murray, or the Bills with Josh Allen, or whoever it may be. Like it just feels like eventually it has to happen. And it would be foolish to give up on the kid after 6.5, 7 games, whatever it would be. But again, it's not overly encouraging. And I think, you have to take it from a fair perspective and say, okay, yeah, he's really struggling. And while we're not going to give up on him soon, we want to see him improve on some stuff, because I'm sure some of the excuses that people are using in the chat, people are using on Twitter, people are using in their minds are the same excuses we used for Sanchez or Geno or Sam Darnold, and look at Sam Darnold now. Like you said, he's benched behind PJ Walker. Like he can't even get on the field. They give up a second, a fourth, and a sixth. In terms of like the other quarterbacks to draft for, yeah, like it wouldn't make sense to trade for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, because then you have a window of 2 to 3, 4 years of those guys, and the Jets are going to take 2, 3 to 4 years to be truly competitive, like yearly, hopefully playoff contenders. So that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Then, like I said, keeping Darnold, that the guy was terrible, and he's shown that a lot with the Panthers. As soon as he couldn't check down Christian McCaffrey, he started to struggle immensely, and there's a reason for that, 'cause he's not good. So yeah, we have to give the kid some time, obviously, and you hope after the next couple of games he starts to make incremental progress, because right now he's been bad. Like I think if we really had to give like a fair grade to him, minus, people say the line, I see some people saying the line in the chat, The difference between the line between Sam Darnold's rookie and second year between Zach Wilson's is immense. Like Zach Wilson's line is not good. It's below average, but Sam Darnold had like the lowest time to throw. He was consistently in second and 12. I think it was like 32 his first year and 30th his second year. And where Zach Wilson might be 21st, 22nd, 23rd, especially the last couple of weeks too. Putting an LDT at right guard has been a revival for the Jets run game. And I think he's been better in the pass game than PFF has given him. I roasted them on my last live stream and showed some plays where their grade was absolutely terrible. So LDT has been good. So he's in the best situation of those guys too. Like you compare his receivers, his offensive line compared to Darnold's, compared to Geno's. Obviously, Sanchez had a team that went to the AFC Conference Championship game his first and second year, but compared to those guys, his team is much better, and he's not showing much more than those guys did. So we have to be fair at the same time, while not being overly critical and stupid. So it's kind of a fine balance.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for me last year with Sam. I was ride or die Sam, year 1, year 2, going into year 3. I was like, this is the year he's going to make the jump. We're adding more talent. This is what's going to happen. And it took me till, I don't know if it was week 7 or 8, whenever Flacco came in and the offense looked different, just like totally different. I was like, I'm done with Sam. I'm done with Sam. I love Sam. Like I like the guy. I wanted him to succeed. I think he was dealt a bad hand by getting Gase and being stuck with the no weapons and the bad offensive line. But the same thing, you see Mike White, you see Josh Johnson, you see Joe Flacco come in. So for me, I guess something that's sort of reassuring, but also sort of confusing at the same time is like, I feel like the coaching staff is doing their job. Like the young players are starting to play well. Like all our AVT, Elijah Moore, Michael Carter, Eccles. You got Hall continuing to play well. Ashton Davis has looked better this year than he has. Well, he's only got 1 year under his belt other than this year. But, it just feels like the young guys are getting involved. And the offensive side with the quarterback specifically, all 3 of the other quarterbacks have played well, or at least I would say better than Zach Wilson. Well-ish. I would say better than Zach, right? Like,
there you go. Words.
Like even Zach's best game, against the Titans, like you said, there were some weird kind of plays that were ill-advised, and he's bombing a ball up there. He's not playing the on-script plays, right? And not being able to close out easy throws, the out to Corey Davis, the pass to Griffin.
And the one ball too that game that people like kind of overlook was the ball. I forget exactly what the situation was. It was in the 3rd or 4th quarter. He rolls out to the right, and I think it was like the Yankee concept where basically it's going to be a deep over and then a post from the other side. It was something like that, if not exactly that. And he has Keelan Cole running across the middle, wide open on an over. And he looks at him and skips it and throws him in double coverage of Corey Davis, which the result is good because he got a PI, but the process was he forced him into double coverage. And I'm much more about I always say that, I almost oversay it. I'm much more about the process than the results. The result of that should have probably been based on the chance we threw that ball. It was picked off or deflected when you had a wide open guy on an over route. And I'm not one of those guys to freeze frame the screenshot of when he threw it. Say, oh, this guy is open on the other side of the field. That wasn't his progression that he wasn't looking at. He looked at Keelan Cole, skipped it, and then threw it to Davis. And I was like, what are you doing here? So, there are definitely concerns, but then there's the flashes, and we talk about like him versus White versus Flacco versus Josh Johnson. Like the thing, the way that White won versus the Bengals was a lot of checkdowns, and it's not necessarily sustainable. Where Zach Wilson will take those whole shots. He will throw the ball 25 yards down the field, 30 yards down the field. So you're trying to kind of craft and mold the guy who has much more of a
arsenal of
arsenal and much more of a more complicated game than those guys. Were like Flacco, you're going to keep him in the pocket. You're not going to roll out a lot. Like it's simple, like 3 to 5 step drop stuff. Where Zach Wilson, can run naked bootlegs and take deep shots. So like he's going to take a lot more work because there's a lot more to work on with him because he has such a much more physical upside. But at the same time, again, can't say we're encouraged right now. We'd be lying to, or I'd be lying to everybody if I said, I definitely think he's going to be great because I haven't seen many signs of consistency. There's those flash plays, and that's great. But when you have the ball in your hand, depending on obviously the game plan, 30, 40, 50 times a game, and you're making 4, 5, 6 flash plays, that's great. But what are you doing those other 30 plays? And he's been way too inconsistent. You're holding your breath when he drops back because he's going to miss somebody, at this point. and a lot of it's footwork, a lot of it's him overthinking, a lot of it's him like aiming that ball. But you can't miss a 5-yard slant. It's the NFL, and the positive thing about it is like that could be fixed. Josh Allen came into the league with accuracy problems. He fixed it. Zach Wilson didn't have accuracy problems in college. I was not there. And if you say that, you one, you didn't watch, or two, you still know what we're talking about, because accuracy was great. But he's overthinking it. So how do we get him to calm down? Because I think if we could take the Zach Wilsons of the second half of games and kind of like spread that out to the entire game, like we wouldn't be as discouraged, because his first half or second half, Zach Wilson looks completely different. And while he still does struggle in the second half, the first half, he just looks like he's lost the first couple of drives. So it's going to be interesting. This is a good test this week against the Eagles too, because they have a good defensive line. So we'll see how he bounces back. Saints too, it's a good defense. So we said the hope he just slowly takes steps in the right direction by the end of the season, so we're not all kind of depressed in the offseason. Like, yeah, you know what? We got Hutchinson, or we got Thibodeau, or we got Evan Neal, but, you know, Zach Wilson, like we need something to grasp onto. So hopefully he gives it to us.
Yeah, I want to see him against, like, I was trying to find the stat, and I don't know if I could find it real quick, but there was something along the lines of like, of the top 5 passing defenses in Zach's 6 games, I think he went against 4 of the top 5 passing defenses. I wish I could find it. I don't know if.
Yeah, he had some tough games. The Panthers are obviously a solid defense. They show up sometimes. The Patriots, just look at the record versus rookie quarterbacks. Like, he definitely played some good teams, but again, like, we can go to that, and we can also say, okay, he missed a 5-yard slant, or missed this guy, or skipped that read, or didn't check this protection, or got sacked here, or didn't throw the ball away there. So again, it's really such a more layered conversation. Just, oh, well, are we disappointed? Should we give up on him now? Like, we have to wait and see. You don't give up on any rookie after 6 or 7 games, right? So why are we going to give up on a rookie at a position that's the most difficult to learn in all of sports? So we can't give up on him at this point. But with that being said, we want to see more encouraging signs.
Yeah, I think I don't want to call it confidence in Zach Wilson, but I think my composure with Zach Wilson is that of, I think it was the right move at the time in the draft. I think it was I don't question that decision really at all. And then the thought of possibly moving on, like, I'm not giving up assets to go after, Watson, Wilson, or Rodgers. It's just not happening. We're not built for that, and we're not at a point where we can do that. And then when I look at this upcoming quarterback class, it's not like I see a Kyler Murray or Cam Newton situation. Jets only have like a 1.5% chance of getting the number 1 pick anyway. So, like, I'm sort of reserved to the fact of like, okay, let's let this kid learn. Let's figure it out. I want to give him 3 years. Now, if you think he is not the answer and he's just not going to be the guy, look, cut bait with him. But I don't think that's the vibe I'm getting from the coaching staff. I think they want to see this guy. Well, of course, they want to see him perform well, but I think they believe he can perform well, given what they saw in college. And, it's a weird conversation, because, like, what does Joe Douglas do? Because he's kind of hitched his wagon to Wilson at this point now. And I guess that's sort of where I wanted to jump into my next question, and that is Joe Douglas a good GM? Because I have heard ad nauseum the fans just ranting about how bad Joe Douglas's draft classes are, and like the 2020 draft was horrible. You look at Becton, he can't get on the field. Mims can't get on the field. Pirine, was passed over by a practice squad guy to fill in for Michael Carter. Like, for me, I think he is a good GM. I'll give my thoughts afterwards, but I want to hear your thoughts first. What do you think about Joe Douglas, and how has he done so far?
Yeah. This is another one that could take forever, because there's so many layers to this, because we can go through every single move and say why it was good or why it was bad. And like, a lot of people go to the 2020 draft class with Joe Douglas, and like, I think people they live in a bubble in like Jets land, and they don't realize how many other bad picks, other GMs make. Like, if you go throughout the history of draft classes, like a 25-30% hit rate is like a good hit rate. So if you're missing on 3rd, 4th round picks, 5th round picks, I get it. Now, am I going to completely excuse the Pirine pick or the Zuniga pick or
Mhm.
The Morgan pick, no. But at the same time, people bring up those picks from those drafts, and they fail to mention the Huffs and the 𝐗-𝐅𝐸s, who's a solid backup slot corner right now. Mims, who we were all ecstatic about and loved the pick at the time. Now we're Monday morning quarterbacking and say we hate it because of various problems in the offseason. But again, all progression isn't linear. People thought Corey Davis was a bust after his first year or two. And while we're not necessarily ecstatic with him, he just got $12 million for a reason. And we view him as still probably a solid number 2 receiver. So again, you don't have to be Justin Jefferson your first year with Mims. And then Becton, we all loved him his first year. He battled some injuries. And then this year, it's not like he was fat and out of shape. Like I already said, there was pictures of him absolutely yoked up, the slimmest 365 I've ever seen in my entire life. And he gets rolled up by 𝐗-𝐅 because 𝐗-𝐅 is terrible. But like now that's Douglas's fault because 𝐗-𝐅 got rolled up on him, So there are problems with that draft class. And then this one, you look at this draft class, all the young guys we're talking about right now, we're all ecstatic about Michael Carter. We're all ecstatic about AVT. We're all ecstatic about Michael Carter II. We're all ecstatic about Elijah Moore right now. But we're talking about how terrible he is. So yeah, he has some bad moves. But then again, the Huffs of the world, the JFM, he made an impact yesterday, didn't he? Or 2 days ago, whatever it was. Or yeah, yesterday. Jesus. He made a big impact. Like he has some waiver wire pickups that are good. He just picked up LDT, who I didn't watch it yet, but he was good in this.
Traded for LDT and they cut Brown. Like we could bring Brown back.
You could bring him back for a special teams at best tight end 4 for offensive linemen who, regardless of what you want to say about him, and this maybe isn't the biggest like indictment or like positive of his play, whatever. He's much better than 𝐗-𝐷. And his first game, I was legitimately impressed. I thought he was at least average, which is a lot better than 𝐗-𝐷 was. I don't give a shit about the numbers. I don't. So yeah, you have that move. You have the trading of Jamal Adams. 2 first-round picks look pretty good right now. I think right now, if we saw what AVT is in his first year and just said, hey, him for Jamal Adams with a rookie quarterback coming in, we'd probably take it. For how Jamal 100%. Adams is playing at this moment in time. Sam Darnold, for what he is, he's benched. PJ Walker in front of Sam Darnold. He got a second, a fourth, and a sixth. Like he's good at operating the trademark. He's good at not overpaying. I think his draft classes, while there's been some misses, there's also been hits that people ignore when they talk about how bad their draft classes are. And with that all being said, he's managing a roster that there was no depleted of talent when he came in here. So yeah, it was going to take some time. That's why he wanted a long contract, because look how bad the roster that he took over was. Coming with Adam Gase and all these overpaid guys, and we're still paying Chris Herndon, another trade, by the way. We're still paying Tremaine Johnson. I don't know if we're still paying a Newtonwell, but we were still paying a Newtonwell. We had Le'Veon Bell on the roster who's doing nothing here. Like he had to get out of a really shitty situation. I think he's done a pretty good job. And again, I'm not absolving him of problems. Like there are things that I see that I have issue with. The backup quarterback situation this offseason, I didn't like it. I think it was a panic trade for Flacco. You're not going to convince me otherwise. We can get into that a different day. I don't like the tight end position, how that was addressed, or the lack of addressing that in the offseason, because with the team coming in, you're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, and they've since adjusted. You didn't do anything at tight end. Linebacker, while I think that if I had to bet, it was probably Saleh and Olberg, like, hey, we want Davis because they're the linebacker guys. But at the same time, you had the Jayon Browns and Nicholas Morrows out there, who were much better players than he was. And this system puts a heavy coverage responsibility on the linebackers, which is not easy to fill. And we saw how bad Jared Davis, excuse my French, but fucked that up when he was playing. And he got saved by Quincy Williams, who's a scrappy pickup. Who people don't, when you mention so we could go through it all day. And I am definitely a Joe Douglas defender. And you're looking at this team right now with a lot of young pieces that we all like. We're looking at the free agent class this year, which, listen, like, yeah, it sucks that people got injured, but how different would this team be right now? And everybody has injuries, but still, with Carl Lawson, with LaMarcus Joyner, with Vinny Curry, with all these guys on the team, we'd be much better. So, you can't say, oh, the free agency class sucked, they're not playing, because, yeah, they got injured. It's unfortunate. LaMarcus Joyner didn't have a history of injuries. Vinny Curry didn't have a history of injuries. You could argue Carl Lawson, but okay, that's fine. Like, he had a history of injuries. They took a risk, and he got injured. It sucks. But, and now you're going to next year with those players coming back, with top 3 to 5 money in cap space and a shit ton of capital in the draft. So let's see where the Jets are next year, So a long-winded answer that I went a bunch of different directions in. We could take it so many different branches there, but that's kind of like overall opinion without ever maybe not really even saying anything. But
no, I think that basically laid out my thoughts, because when I go through things, everyone wants to talk about the draft. And I'm just like, there's so much more to the draft. Like, people are bitching about his talent, like, evaluation. I was like, what are you talking about? His talent evaluation's fine. Becton looks like a stud. Didn't have injury history before this. Got rolled up on by 𝐗-𝐷. That's why he's out of the game. It's not like he's soft. Like, yeah, there were some people talking about like, okay, his frame, his size, like it might be harder to come back from injury. And I do think we are seeing that right now with this particular type of injury with him. But I think the talent is there. The talent recognition's there. Mims has talent. I think he was probably built more, and I don't have as strong a faith in this one as I do with 𝐷 and Morgan, but I feel like Mims was built more for the previous regime than what we're asking our receivers to do with this regime. And that's kind of, I didn't like the Morgan pick at the time. I didn't love 𝐷, but again, that felt more like a previous regime kind of thing.
Ashton Davis, it's a miss on a 4th round pick, you know?
Well, that's just it too. And it's like, it's a totally different style back. Like the types of running backs we have coming in are like 4.3, 4.4 speed kind of backs, where 𝐷 I think was like 4.6 or 4.7. It was like really, there's like a pretty drastic difference between the types of backs they use. But then I look at, Ashton Davis. I think the foresight there was smart. I think at that point we traded Jamal in August, I think, of that same year when we drafted.
Jamal was on the roster when we drafted Davis.
Yeah. And I thought I didn't expect them to go safety there, but I thought it made sense because you have May, who's eventually going to be up for a contract. And then you had Adams, who was definitely on his way out at that point. I definitely wish we got more out of the 𝐗-𝐅𝐸 pick. I'm a little done with the 3rd round Florida defensive ends. I don't want to see them anymore. Clark, I wish we could have seen on the field. But then you get into guys like Bryce Hall, 5th round starting cornerback, like huge pickup there.
Yeah.
Man, in the 6th round, you have a 4% chance of getting a starter there. Some people are a little upset with like the 29-yard punt, but that's going to happen occasionally. Like by and large, man hasn't been like bad or a detriment to this team. And getting him for, a 6th round pick, I think is fine. Then you talk about Huff, and you're talking about, 𝐗-𝐅𝐸 and the waiver wire pickups in, was JFM a waiver wire? I think he was. I'm pretty sure he was waiver wire from the Rams. And then you have Quincy Williams. And then like basically the biggest issues I have with Joe Douglas right now is not retaining Robbie Anderson, but that's also kind of like a ticky-tacky one because I didn't think Sam had the deep ball skills to be able to get the ball to Robbie anyway. So it's kind of like it sucks. Would have liked to have had him, but it didn't work.
And if he was in the system, it's not a good system fit for Robbie Anderson at all. And he's struggling with the Panthers, just if we're going back on that. So
that is true. Now, is he struggling because there's no McCaffrey and because there's Sam Darnold at the helm? Or
they were signing him to play with Sam Darnold at that point, though, so exactly that kind of goes to your point.
They signed Sam. They got Sam Darnold to play with Robbie.
No, I'm saying the Jets at the time they were going to re-sign Robbie Anderson. That was with Sam Darnold on the roster. So you're re-signing him to play with Sam Darnold, no?
No. You're saying back when Douglas had it. When the Jets
when he wasn't able to sign
for sure.
Yeah.
No, and that's true. But I felt like he played well enough to at least get the contract he got from Carolina from the Jets. And then we wound up getting someone in Perriman who Sam couldn't hit either way. So I guess I was a little down on that one. But I think overall, trade-wise, I think he's above average.
Oh, no, he fleaces people with trades. It's not even above average.
We're not going to get any more trades.
No, he fleaces people with trades. It's not even
close. The Herndon trade was amazing.
Yeah, how do you trade? You trade a tight end for a decent level right guard who legitimately saw good playing time with the Chiefs when in a Super Bowl run. So he fleeces people with trades, and like you can go through all the picks like one by one, but I think if people were to look at the good picks and the things we're happy about, like you said, the Huffs and the Williams and the JFMs and the Halls and both of Michael Carter's and all these guys, and you kind of like take like, okay, the picks and then the hit rate he has, which right now is like, let's just say it's like 50%. Like if you really go through close. It all. Yeah. And then you go through like people are always hyping up like, the Patriots. The Patriots have had historically bad drafts, but even go to the teams who you think have really good draft classes, the Steelers and the Ravens. Go to their drafts and legitimately look through the drafts of the past couple of years and see how many hits they have. And it's probably 30-40%. So then now when you take that information, now go back to Joe Douglas' class, and okay, yeah, he missed on 𝐷. Yeah, he might have missed on, I don't love Ashton Davis. Yeah, he might have missed on 𝐗-𝐅𝐸, but then you have to have the picks in there too, because it's not Madden. You can't just develop these guys. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And with that being said, I think it's almost a little bit too much of a crutch for people, but they say, oh, well, he drafted for the previous regime, which in part is true because they are part of that. But everybody says, okay, well, every bad pick was for the other regime, which I don't necessarily believe. But still, even if last year you give them half the picks, and this year it's probably even more than half. Like, who did he miss on so far this year?
Maybe Jonathan Marshall, but we really haven't seen him play.
He's a
Like, the
seventh
guy
round guy who needs a lot more
that's just
time to develop. Like, and Eccles he struggled, but he also struggled versus like Stephon Diggs and some of these guys. Like, if Eccles is a fifth or a sixth string corner in the team, that is a massive hit for a sixth round pick. Massive compared to other sixth round picks. And he looked like he could be like a legitimate role player for the Jets. Michael Carter II, solid slot, and all these guys. So like, I'm not here with my hand down Douglas's pants or anything like that, but like I think that people are kind of just too harsh on his draft class. Yeah, my hands, But yeah, no, I'm a defender. And again, if the Jets had an old roster right now with no draft picks and all the cap space used, and they had 3 wins, I'll be furious. But they have so much capital the next couple of years to build on what we already think is a roster filled with young talent. Like, a lot of people, while we suck, we have a bunch of pieces we're excited about. And if you're lying if you don't think that's the case, but around those good players that we're comfortable with, one, they're still developing because they're young, and two, we have a bunch of really, really shitty players at the same time, so they can't shine all the time, and it's going to take time to fix that. So
yeah, no, you're spot on. I mean, that the excitement level for Jet fans, it sucks because you want to tell them, hey, be patient. Like, it's going in the right direction. This is something we haven't seen. We haven't seen a patient plan. 𝐗-𝐅𝐸𝐥 started doing that, but then just totally like butchered his draft. So like, yeah. I like what we got in Douglas. I like where he's going with all this stuff, and I think that we're headed in the right direction. Draft pick wise and free agent wise, like, I want to say the Jets have the most snaps by rookies this year by like a wide margin. Like, I think it's 300 snaps or something like that. I think the Steelers are second place in that. And that's not even taking into account, like, we have a zillion second-year players that are on the field. Like, they're not even, like, how many guys do we have that have been in the league, like, 5 years? It's like Flacco, May.
GVR, Moses.
GVR. Yeah, Moses is older. Fant's older. Mosley.
Joyner if he was healthy. Vinny Curry if he was healthy. But, like, again, they're not technically like people, because I said this in like one of my streams, like, oh, they're the youngest team in the NFL, but then like some of the fans are like, oh, no, not the youngest team. The youngest team based on snaps played by young players. So for the pieces that are young and actually playing, they're by far the youngest team in the NFL. And again, you're playing with a bunch of guys who, at this point, do you want 𝐗-𝐅𝐸𝐥 or Eccles starting for you? No, you're going to get roasted by the Ja'Marr Chases and the Stephon Diggs of the world with those guys. But on a better roster, they're the 4th, 5th, 6th guy, not the first guy. So they're getting valuable playing time. And again, they have a ton of capital to fix it up. Like, next year, I hate getting into the draft. I really do. But
dude, I love the draft.
Like,
it's so hopeful.
So do I. But like, at this point, like, okay, I'm just throwing out names. I'm not even biased with these picks. Your first 2 picks next year are Kenyon Green and Derek Stingley. And like, look how much that upgrades your class if these guys are as good as the last draft class for Douglas. And then you have 2 seconds. You have a third, 2 fourths, and like $65 million. And then you get Carl Lawson back, and then Vinny Curry is not going to be back, and maybe Joyner resigns, whatever. But they're going to be a much, much better team this next year. And I think the last couple of weeks, while we've struggled, the young pieces are definitely starting to step up with the Michael Carters and Elijah Moores and AVTs. But now it all is centered around Zach Wilson. So like, back to that, can he take advantage of this roster, which I think is far away, but at the same time close. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but it does, because just go ahead.
No, that's exactly where I was going to go with this, is having Zach miss a few of these games and seeing what the offense is potentially capable of doing gives me a lot more excitement for LaFleur, for Saleh, not so much Ulbrich right now. But I do think that we haven't spent a lot of premium assets on the defensive side. So once we start doing that, I think you'll start to see that kind of round out a little bit more. But yeah, I like where this team is, even if Zach is struggling right now. The best thing that could possibly happen in these last, what do we got, 6 weeks, 7 weeks left? If the Jets can somehow get some type of spark with Zach Wilson, maybe it's the last 4 games of the season or something like that, and he just kind of goes on just a little bit of a run where he has maybe 2 300-yard games, and then maybe the rest are 200. Like that. Like, I'm not asking like a crazy ton. Like, 300 yards in today's NFL is not crazy, but something where you can get excited, I think, is going to go a long way. Because I agree. I think this team's not that far off with like all the different players that are playing. And if you make those players the depth pieces, it's just going to look so much better in a year or two time. I don't know. I think I like Joe Douglas. I'm sticking with him. I think he's our best GM that I've ever seen. And that's going back, to 95, 6. Probably 98 is when I actually like consciously remember stuff.
And like somebody brought up the contracts in a chat. I don't know who it was, but like I don't know what contracts he's signed that have been bad. Like, JFM, yeah, he was quiet for a couple of weeks, but he just had a pick almost for 6. He's had 2 sacks. He's about to have 9, 10 sacks this year. And, it might be a little bit high, but like that people bring up Corey Davis too. But Corey Davis was signed, like the money he's making, he's signed to be a number 2. Like that's what his money dictates. He was in the market. Like, can you imagine signing Kenny Galladay to $19 million a year and doing what he's doing right now?
Oh yeah.
Can you imagine signing
Leonard Williams?
Can you imagine
signing $20 million a year?
Nelson Aguilar to $13 million a year? Like, is Corey Davis better than Nelson Aguilar? And while we're a little bit down on Corey Davis, and again, you have to understand with his numbers, like he's had more drops and fumbles than he's had throughout any season of his career, all the way or already through like 8 games played for the Jets. So it's kind of an outlier year, and I'm sure he will round out. So, yeah, I don't know what contracts have been really bad for Douglas. Like even Morgan Moses, he got $3.5 million.
Yeah,
Dude,
so I went off. I'm part of Jet Nation forums, and there was one guy that was just rubbing me the wrong way. And he goes, "Oh, his contracts are awful." And he brings up Greg Van Roten. I was like, "The hell are you talking about? What part of his 3-year, $10 million deal made you think he was a long-term solution at right guard? Like more than like a backup. Like he is a plug-in piece that was supposed to potentially create competition on the roster. And ideally, he wouldn't have started this past year. Like they were definitely banking on trying to get Tooney or, having someone else slide in there. Clark, like
that's another unfortunate one. Like a 3rd-round pick who's been injured. Like, and I really liked Clark in college. Like he looked awesome. You're a little bit bougie there. Is that like a lime thing? And so you don't have to actually put a lime in there, a lemon?
Correct. Yes, because I'd have for me to drink a Corona with a lime, I'd have to drink like 6 or 7 Coronas to not have the limes go bad. So I'm cheap, and I get like let's see how many limes. How many limes are in this? Does it tell you? It probably doesn't. Probably not. Whatever. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 pictures of limes on this bottle.
It's at least 5 limes in that bottle.
At least 5 limes.
So yeah, no, I'm a defender of Douglas for sure. And again, like people in the chat, like again, I'll defend the moves he made well, and the LDT, like I like all those moves, but like the tight end, the backup quarterback position, linebacker, like I will criticize those, and I'll criticize some picks, but overall, taking like a 3,000 eye view, whatever, of him as a GM so far, I'm definitely encouraged. Like I'm not discouraged Joe Douglas at all. I have the most faith in him in this organization, from like GM to head coach to quarterback, like the big 3. I have more faith in Douglas than any one of the other guys at this point, based on the moves he's made. And I really like some of the young pieces. Like again, people show them draft classes. Look how ecstatic you are at the picks this year. And even last year there's good picks. Like we talked about that already. So like the JD hate is again, but when you're losing, everybody sucks. So it's gonna go to Joe Douglas. He built this roster. That's terrible, but it's a little bit different if he was in year 5 or 6. We had no capital. We had an old team. We're the youngest team in the NFL with a ton of capital still going forward, with a ton of injuries right now. It's like unprecedented injuries that we always have, it seems like. So they'll come back too. So
now we have about 12 minutes for those of you guys tuning in right now. I got Joe Blewett from Jets X Factor. All his links are down in the description down below, so make sure you follow him on Twitter, as well as Sabo and Nania, both, all 3 of those guys. Great Twitter follows. And if you're just hanging out in the chat, drop a like if you like us teaming up with us. Me teaming up with Joe. Always good to see that. So I know you said you don't really love talking the draft right now, but I want to get a little bit into it. And look, I'll be blatantly honest. But
it's my show, damn it.
It's my show. No, but I haven't done a crazy ton of research on this at all. But I'm looking at the top 10. And I believe the Jets are sitting at, let's see, I guess it depends on what happens tonight. But as of recording this, Jets are sitting at 4, with the Seattle pick being at 5. If they lose, then actually it's still
they still have 4 or 5 if they lose.
The Seahawks are the Seahawks are above the Jets pick. And I love that Seattle is the 2nd worst team in the NFC behind Detroit. It makes me so happy. I really hope Jamal Adams can lose this game tonight in some spectacular fashion, because the pass interference last week was
Yes,
Beautiful.
I love seeing Jamal Adams be miserable. Like
Oh,
it's such a cherry on top of this trade. Like him smoking cigars and being so happy,
oh.
and now like just where they are in an organization, going forward, they're gonna have a really really shitty couple of years. So I
Oh,
am
just
ecstatic.
wait for Russell Wilson to get traded to like the Giants or something, and then or maybe he goes to Denver, or he goes to another team, and
Not the
then
Giants, please, not the
Russell.
Giants.
Oh, well, yeah, I don't want him to see him go to the Giants, but I do think that's probably a very likely possibility.
Yeah.
But then what does Jamal Adams do? He's just signed this massive contract. He's on a shit team. Oh, maybe they go out and they sign Sam Darnold. Or oh god, that would just fucking. I would be so
He's
happy.
gonna force his way to Dallas, and then because they have to trade for him and
Yes.
sign him, they're gonna lose some offensive linemen. And Dak's gonna get
Yep.
hurt, and they're gonna suck
CeeDee
too.
Lamb
And
comes to the Jets then because they can't retain him. Oh, I love your thinking, Joe.
there you go. Yeah, there you go. No, I'm happy. I'm happy the Seahawks are sucking. And again, now you're gonna have most likely at least one top 10 pick and at least two top 16 picks.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do with those? Do you want to move up? Do you like Kenyon Green enough to move up from 8 to 6? Like again, I'm not watching enough college right now to know exactly who I like and what and when, where, why, etc. But they have so much flexibility now. So thank you, Jamal Adams, because that's into ABT. And
dude,
then
I want to trade down and get a third
year.
first. Like I'm greedy as shit. I want an extra first next year. Give me I hope Seattle gets the number 2 pick, and we can trade down, and we could like just load up. Like,
it depends on who's there. It depends on who you like, who's
That's
there.
True.
So
I do like Thibodeau. I do think Aiden Hutchinson is probably going to be one of our first round picks, as long as we can stay within that top. I think we have to stay above the Giants because I do think the Giants are probably.
I think it'll be top 3 right now. The way he's playing to be
Dude,
had a
3
chance
sacks against Ohio State was huge.
Yeah,
that was really. And he could have had a 4th. He got held on one of the.
Him and again, there's a lot of time to go with medicals and interviews and all this stuff because people can drop out because of bad medicals. But like just based on what we know now, you'd have to assume that they're the first 2 non-quarterbacks taken off the board. Maybe throw like Evan Neal in there. And again, this is like another like kind of now we can do full circle now and back to the Zach Wilson thing. Like everybody last year was just keep Sam Darnold and draft a quarterback next year. Who was that quarterback? Yep. There's nobody. Yeah. And I think Rattler just like is going back to college now too.
I think Corral is Matt Corral, I think, is the top quarterback listed on Tankathon. Yeah. They have him going 2 to the Texans. So they have Thibodeau going 1 to the Lions, Corral, the quarterback from Ole Miss, going to the Texans at 2, Evan Neal going 3 to the Jags, Stingley going 4 to the Jets, which I don't agree with, and then Aiden Hutchinson going 5 to the Jets by way of Seattle. With Kyle Hamilton, the safety from Notre Dame, going to the Giants, and then the Giants at 7, taking edge from Purdue. And then Malik Willis is the quarterback at 8.
I always like to think like the draft takes with like a grain of salt a little bit, and it's probably farther along this year than it was last year. This time when I'm going to say this, but at a certain point last year, right around this time, maybe a little bit before, Shaun Wade was supposed to be a first round corner. A top 10 corner, top 15
go 4th or 5th round,
and he went like the 5th or 6th round. So like let's So yes, this guy's going here, there. Like we have to see. There's so much stuff to watch, and like again, before what was it, 3 years ago? Like I heard so much hype on Rashawn Gary. I remember the other one being Farrell. I was watching those guys. I was like, no, please God, no. Same thing like that one draft. I think it was Jonah Williams. And again, I'll be fair.
That was the same draft.
Same
draft. That was the Quinnen Williams year.
Yeah, Jonah Williams, and I liked, and people loved Jonah Williams in that draft. I actually liked Jawan Taylor more, and I know Jawan Taylor hasn't been good, and I'm fine with admitting my mistakes, but like I can go and I can watch, Stingley and be like, dude, this guy is way overrated. So I try to be pretty, because I do, that's what I try to do. I try to evaluate. So I try to be pretty lukewarm with the takes until I really know what I'm talking about, because I don't with a lot of the picks so far. So.
Yeah, ideally for me, if I'm looking at the positions that the Jets have right now and where we could potentially go in free agency, I would love for LDT to be able to lock down the guard position. There was a point where I was very pro Linderbaum, like top 15, and I very much am away from that now. I like what we've gotten out of McGovern so far. I would have been like, I'm fine with taking a center. If you want to take one, 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, whatever you feel the value is, I'm okay with that, because I think we're going to need it anyway at some point. And then I was like, okay, let's move McGovern over to guard, like, and then we could just or let whoever play guard when the chips fall. I'm looking at right tackle. I don't know. The tackle position is an interesting one for me, and I do think Joe Douglas is going to retain I think we have Fant under contract for next year, and then
Yeah.
Moses is only on the 1-year deal. I do think he tries to bring back Moses.
I don't think it happens.
You don't think so?
I
think he's bringing in another tackle. That's basically what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, you have a tackle who was signed late in an offseason. He got cut unexpectedly in a low cap year. He's gonna get more than $3.5 million. And if you are bringing Fant back at like $10-ish million, Moses is not going to sign to be a backup at like $4 or $5 million. So he's gonna try to cash out. I really doubt he's back next year. So it's probably Fant at right tackle. Go ahead.
See, my whole thing with, I don't know. I feel like Douglas could wind up spending some more money than we may want on a backup tackle, purely because when he was with Philadelphia, they had Lane Johnson, they had Jason Peters, and they drafted Andre Dillard in the first round. Like they or at least it seems like he values those tackle positions, especially when Becton can't quite stay on the field all the time.
Exactly.
And I think paying $10 million to Fant, while we weren't thrilled with it maybe at the time, I know you were actually one of the people that were a little more pro Fant than
the only person.
People.
The only person.
Dude, a lot of people were not happy with that signing. They're like, what the $10 million for a swing tackle, and now he's playing lights out. He's playing. At least he's playing well.
I think I was the only person on the internet defending that one.
Dude, I think you might have been. I definitely was not.
And then people were like, "Oh, revisionist history." There's a 2-hour review out there where I was defending him. And the thing with like his, I'm not going to get into it a lot, but he didn't have a lot of playing time, and then through 18 to 19 or 19 to 8 to 20, whatever it was when we signed him.
Yeah,
he took a lot of steps in the right direction every single game I watched. So I was like, okay, not a lot of playing time, athletic, taking steps in the right direction. I get the signing. I didn't necessarily love it, but I didn't hate it. So they need a lot, and with McGovern, like if McGovern is your worst offensive lineman, that's a solid offensive line because he's about average-ish. Some games he's a lot worse than that. Some game he's better. Like he needs to be more consistent.
I think GVR kind of made him look worse than he was the last 2 years.
At times. But then there was also a play last game that I broke down where McGovern actually plays it really bad, and LDT got blamed for something McGovern didn't do properly. Okay. So there are instances of McGovern kind of screws up. But again, if he's average to a little bit below average, look at any good offensive line in the past decade. They're always going to have like one weaker link. And if that weaker link is average, a little bit below average, okay, that's a lot better than the Jonathan Harrison and Wesley Johnsons, the Brian Winters, the Wayne Hunters, Breno Giacomini's we've had in the past. Like he's not great, but he's not terrible. Like we've had terrible offensive linemen, and McGovern's not terrible. He has some terrible plays, but again, he's about average-ish. And then the defense we have, the tight end. We need a tight end, undoubtedly. I think you need another running back. You need linebackers, safeties, corners. You need a lot on this team. But the good thing is we have so much capital to address at least some of those. So.
Yeah, I think when I'm looking at the first-round picks, I'm thinking I would love to get Aiden Hutchinson. I think either him or Thibodeau. I think Thibodeau is more of like the explosive, like really high ceiling kind of player. He strikes me as like I don't know what any injury history or anything like that, but he like seems a lot smaller, like a lot thinner, and that like sort of worries me. I guess Aiden Hutchinson feels like his floor is a lot higher, and he's always going to be solid, but he's like, maybe his ceiling's going to be like all pro level, edge rusher.
Yeah, it's almost like it's
a different player.
And I hate player comparisons, but it's like almost like the freakiness of like a Chandler Jones-esque guy with Thibodeau versus where like Hutchinson is like more of like the Bosa brothers or like one of those guys who are athletic, but they're not athletic freaks, but they're more like technicians paired with solid athleticism, where Thibodeau's ceiling is absurdly high because he's just an absolute freak of nature. So it'll be interesting too, because like if people get the conversation of like, oh, D-end versus linebacker versus safety, because like it obviously depends on where you are in the draft, because I would argue just in an individual, like looking at each position individually, safety, corner, linebacker, tight end are all bigger needs than edge. But you don't see a lot of good edge guys rounds 2, 3, 4 because they're such hot commodities. And if you can get a Thibodeau or a Hutchinson to pair with Carl Lawson and Quinnen Williams, and I would say one of Rankins or Foley will be back. I don't think both of them will be back. That is a ridiculous defensive line. So you can't just skip on a guy because, again, you don't draft for this year. You draft for the future, just like the Ashton Davis pick. And, obviously it's not necessarily a great pick, but like look at what next year is. Now on the roster next year, we have what? Ashton Davis as a safety, and who?
That's it.
So like, so if Hutchinson's there, like, oh, don't worry. No, we have Bryce Huff. We're going to skip on a generational defensive end because linebackers are bigger need. Like you can't do that. But at the same time, just looking at individual positions, those positions are bigger needs, but it's all about draft value. And, that's why you see the tackles, the DNs, the corners pick that high because they don't really fall. So.
Yeah, dude, the one position that I knew would be a sneaky kind of position to need because we were getting Mosley back after 2 years. We didn't know what Jared Davis was going to be. We were just thin at linebacker.
Mhm.
Dude, if there was someone like a Micah Parsons out there in the first round, I would sign up for this dude 10 times out of 10.
Exactly.
He's so good.
And that's where you get those conversations like, oh, you can't draft a linebacker. Okay, if that linebacker is Michael Parsons, you take him. Oh, you can't draft a guard. If that guard is Quentin Nelson, you drafting him. If that guard is Brandon Sheriff, are you drafting him? So like while positional value is somewhat important, people overvalue it way, way, way too much. If he's a good player, take him, because I don't know if, again, breaking news, while the Jets do have some young pieces, they're depleted of good talent. So it's not like, I'm just going to skip this guy who's a generational safety because I want to take a solid corner. Like, just take the generational guys at the top, take those blue chip guys, because you need to build the roster with those blue chip guys, because the Jets, lack them. At this point, who are the blue chip guys? Quinny Williams, maybe Elijah Moore can turn into that. Other than that, who's a true like superstar? Like, you don't really have a lot of them, so let's not skip them at the top of the draft, unless, again, if you're looking at like Kyle Hamilton and then you like guys in rounds 2, 3, 4, trade down and get some draft picks. I'm cool with that too. But it's a really fun chess game to watch, and that's why we all love to draft and talk about it so much. That and the Jets always suck. So,
dude, so you just hit on a very key point. Not the Jets suck thing, but the the Kyle Hamilton thing. Because I saw Green being in the chat before. I think he's still lurking over there, or he's rubbing one out because you mentioned Kyle Hamilton, and this dude loves Kyle Hamilton. And Matt and I are very much on the train of like, I'm not touching safety in the top 10 again. I'm PTSD right now. But we do have 2 first-round picks. So if you're getting edge, I can see a situation where if you think this guy is a generational safety, maybe you pull that trigger. How do you feel on Kyle Hamilton and taking a safety so high? Are you okay? It seemed like you were okay with it, but like I don't know. I have serious PTSD from the Jamal.
That's the thing. It's the PTSD because of the Jamal Adams thing. But again, if he's generational, he's generational. And again, I don't know that, one, because I haven't watched him close enough, and two, I don't know what his injury outlook is in the future, because you don't really want to take injured guys that high. But for me personally, for the hype I've seen from Kyle Hamilton, I haven't seen it in the past like 10 years for a safety to ever be this high. So if he's going to be that good of a safety, if you have him, let's say, like, I don't know what the Jets draft board is, but he's like a 9.4, but he's at a lower position. But then let's say you have Derek Stingley as an 8.9 and he plays a better position than him. Are you going to skip on those 5 points because he plays a more important position? Where safety it's important. Like it is. Look how bad we've played without the Marcus Mays of the world, and Ashton Davis blowing covers, and Ashton Davis missing tackles, and a bunch of nobodies missing. Robbie Anderson burning whoever that was over the mid. Sheldrick Redwine, I believe it was. Safety's in an important position. If you can get a generational one, like, I know we all hate on Jamal Adams, but I when he was all here, I can guarantee that everybody here was ecstatic with how he was playing. Was he an impactful player? Hell yes, he was. Is Justin Simmons impactful? Yes. Is Kevin Byard impactful? Yes. So if Kyle Hamilton's truly generational, I'm not going to skip on him because he's a safety. If he can make that impact and be like a hybrid linebacker safety, whatever he's going to be, I'm not just going to skip him because of positional value, because I just kind of said before, I think it's a little bit overvalued and just take the best position. So,
dude, if we wind up, here's hypothetical. Jets get the number 2 overall pick with the Seahawks pick, and the Jets wind up like, maybe 4. So we have 2 within the top 5. I would trade down, get a first for next year. We now have 3 firsts for Jamal Adams, and I'm taking Hamilton just to fucking throw it in Jamal's face. Oh, we took this safety higher than your ass, and we got 3 first-round picks for you. Ugh.
Yeah, obviously depending on the board and how it shakes up and how the injury shakes up. Like, if you're telling me right now, like, okay, sign on the dotted line, Kyle Hamilton at 5, I wouldn't be mad about it. If he's generational, then that's great, because like, I love the Malik Hookers and the Jamal Adams coming out. Obviously, Hooker has had some injury problems, but I haven't heard as much hype about a safety. Or he garners even more hype than those guys who were both drafted highly for a reason. So I obviously want to dive into him, but if he's really that damn good, he's that damn good. Just like, again, Quentin Nelson, just like the Brandon Sheriffs, just like the Michael Parsons. Like, if you polled people before those guys were picked and say, hey, let's take a linebacker in the top 10 or whatever, I think he's like actually like 11, 12, 13, whatever it was. Like, oh, no, linebacker, you can't take linebacker in the top 15. We need a guard, or we need a tackle, or we need a corner. I think the Cowboys are pretty happy with Michael Parsons. And I think, again, the Colts are happy with the best offensive lineman in the league right now. So,
completely agree. All right, we have gone beyond our 9 o'clock time limit for tonight. So, quick recap. Guys, calm the hell down on Zach Wilson. He's 7 games into his rookie year. He'll start figuring stuff out. Not overly optimistic right this second, but I'm not hitting the panic button right now either. Joe Douglas, we like what he's doing. I think he's the right GM for the job. Coaching staff looks like they've gotten it together a little bit over the course of the last few weeks. And Joe Blewett is the absolute man, and Jets X Factor is incredible. So, Joe, thank you so much for coming on tonight. Let everyone know where they could find you and plug whatever you're working on.
Yeah, 𝐗-𝐅𝐵 31 on Twitter. I don't tweet as much as I used to, but if you're looking for drunken tweets during a football game, follow me there because it was get interesting. And then the YouTube, the Jets X Factor, we do the live streams typically Thursday nights at 6 to 8. Doing one tomorrow night though because I'm going to St. Thomas, so check that out. And do a lot of film reviews. So when you want to watch these guys and the draft picks and why they're bad, why they're not good, why they're good, whatever. Check out the channel and I'll break it down for multiple hours for you. So
I love it. Joe, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, it's been a lot of fun hanging out. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out of here. I will be back tomorrow with Green Bean and O'Leary for our Talking Jets panel. Guys, this is Jets Talk signing off. JETS.
I don't want to Irish goodbye you.